Hey, how long have you been at Highlands?
25 years.
And the church is 25 years old?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you were living in Colorado at the time, right? In the Springs?
Yep. Born and raised. Yeah.
What made you decide to take the leap of faith? I mean, obviously Highlands now is what? How many campuses? Yeah. How many people go here?
26 locations. I would say if you're going to put an average on it, I would say 50,000 in attendance on a weekend.
So 25 years ago, it was not that.
No, it was not.
So what was it that compelled you to take that step of faith?
Well, Pastor Chris had an impact on my life even 12 years before that. So I was a junior in high school in Colorado Springs at a Christian school, and I loved God more than anybody I knew, but I hated church more than anybody I knew. And my best friend, which you know, Pastor Corey Hardesty, who planted an ARC church in Knoxville many years ago, but he invited me to his youth group, and I was scared to go to his youth group because I heard they had a band, and that's not how I grew up.
What church background did you grow up in?
Presbyterian until high school, and then we switched to a Baptist high school and the church. Okay. And so I had never seen a guitar or drums in a worship service. And so I stayed away. I didn't accept his invitation, but my Baptist pastor preached a Sunday night series. Back then the Baptists did a different message on Sunday nights.
Oh, I grew up Baptist. I remember that.
And you
Same preacher preached this Sunday morning and Sunday night?
Different message.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're not there every time the doors were open, we were told that was like you were horrible. Yeah. So you needed to be there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And he preached a message on worship. A series on worship and on Sunday nights, and I'm like, he's teaching it out of the Bible, but I don't see it in our church. Corey's church does what he's talking about. So then after years of Corey inviting me to his youth group and me saying no, I invited myself because I wanted to go experience worship that I'd just been taught by my pastor. And I walked in to 150 teenagers in a storefront building in Colorado Springs at New Life Church, and I'd never seen that many teenagers excited to be at church ever. Youth group for our church was 7 or 8 in Sunday school, so it was mind-blowing. They seemed happy to be there, and then worship started, and I almost left because these teenagers were jumping up and down, lifting their hands, clapping.
You're like, what is going on?
Freaked, yeah. But before I left the building, I was arrested by the presence of God like I'd never experienced. And by the end of worship, my hands were in the air, tears running down my face.
Wow.
And then the guy that was leading worship behind the keys stepped over behind a music stand and opened his Bible and started teaching the Bible from what we know now as a life-giving approach to the Bible. You can teach it from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which is what I had been used to, or you can teach it from the tree of life. And I'd never heard the get to instead of the got to.
Yeah.
You fall more in love with Jesus instead of don't do this, don't do that. Like it was blowing my mind. And that youth pastor and worship leader was Chris Hodges.
Wow.
And so that was my junior year of high school. And so he had a massive impact on my life over the next several years. And then he eventually, I guess 5 years later, he moved back to Baton Rouge, and I stayed in Colorado Springs for another 7 years and served under the next youth pastor, John Bolin, and then moved here to Birmingham with a pregnant wife and a 2-year-old to help start the church.
Did Pastor Chris call you and say, hey, I'm planting a church, come help?
No, he didn't. He was, Brother Larry at Bethany gave him 3 months, I think, salary to just be off and go travel. So every Sunday, Pastor Chris, at the end of the year 2000, the last 3 months of the year, he was traveling every Sunday preaching at any church that would have him so they could maybe receive an offering and give money toward the launch. And he came through Colorado and was preaching for Mike Ware up in Denver. And he stayed at our house in Colorado Springs. And we were sitting in our living room and had just found out Rachel was pregnant and had our oldest daughter, she was a year and a half old at the time, sitting in our living room hearing the Highlands story, Pastor Chris's dream to start not just a church, but he was sharing with how he wanted to start a ministry school and train up young leaders for full-time ministry. And he shared it in such a way that it was very inspiring. But we had just moved into this house, and we were small group leaders for the church. Had about 70 high school kids in our house every week. So we had a large youth ministry as a small group leader. So I never worked at the church. I was doing it as a volunteer. But listened to his stories, and he said one phrase. He said, "Someday I would like somebody like you."
There you go.
To start our student
planting some little seeds there.
Start our student ministries and start our college to train up young leaders. But he didn't directly ask. And he got up the next morning, went and preached in Denver, and flew back to Baton Rouge. And I couldn't sleep at night.
Yeah.
For 2 or 3 nights, all I was thinking about was Birmingham, Alabama. And when you grow up in front of Pikes Peak in Garden of the Gods,
Had
in
you
the Rocky
ever
Mountains.
been to Birmingham?
No, I'd never been to Alabama. And I had my
so
own
funny.
preconceived ideas about
Yeah.
Alabama at the time. And so I just was freaking out, like, no, I can't. Why am I thinking about Alabama? Like, I live in the Rocky Mountains. This is one of the most beautiful cities in America. What am I thinking? And I called Pastor Chris after 3 or 4 sleepless nights, and I said, I don't know what you did to me, but I can't stop thinking about Birmingham. I'm already thinking of students that I'll recruit to help start the school in our first class. And he kind of laughed, and he said, well, I think that's awesome. I'd love to have you in Birmingham, but I can't pay you, so I don't know what that would look like. So let's just keep praying about it. And it just so happened 2 weeks later, Rachel is from Mississippi, and we were going to Hattiesburg, Mississippi for Christmas. And so I told Pastor Chris, well, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods. I'm going to be in Hattiesburg over Christmas. And he's like, oh, that's perfect. We're moving to Birmingham the day after Christmas, December 26, 2000. And so we're like, okay. So we told my family at our Christmas, before the Christmas in Colorado, hey, we're thinking about going to Birmingham. Lots of tears, but support from my family. Then we went to Hattiesburg, did Christmas with Rachel's family, and shared the same thought. Of course, they're not crying. They're happy we're going to consider being 3 hours away instead of 20 hours away. And so the day after Christmas, Rachel and I drove to Birmingham a few hours ahead of the Hodges. They were in a U-Haul truck, and so we got to Birmingham and drove around a little bit. I was shocked that it wasn't what I had preconceived in my mind of what Alabama would be. And when they arrived at their house, we were there and helped them unload and set up some beds for the kids. And that night we sat on boxes in their living room and talked about a plan, like what would this look like? Because the church was going to launch in 6 weeks from then. And he said, well, why don't you come to the launch day, but why don't you do this? We're going to pray and fast for 3 weeks as a launch team. So why don't you pray and fast from Colorado Springs while we're praying, fasting, and then you come to the first service, and we'll just believe God's going to speak to you by then, and you'll know. And that's exactly what we did. Wow. So I did my longest fast up until we'd been fasting, because ever since Pastor Chris was my youth pastor, my first fast was 24 hours with him when I was 17, and then I continued to grow in fasting over the next 12 years, but I'd never done a fast for more really than 3 days. And so I think I did 8 days of water while I was in our family business, and just joining them while they were praying and fasting here in Birmingham. And then I flew out with Corey, which is so fun, that the guy that invited me to his youth group 12 years earlier, and we flew here with a friend of ours named Lance Coles. We flew here and spent the whole weekend, and you're loading the trailer and so excited, and went to set up at the high school, had no idea what was to come. And I do remember this, that seemed like everybody I met that weekend, whether they were on the launch team, a lot of the launch team were from Baton Rouge, and they were making trips up every weekend, 5-hour drive. And it just seemed like anybody I met, I was like, oh, Nathan would be a better youth pastor than me, and Jason would be better at starting a college than me. Like, it was just, I'm not a naturally insecure guy, but that whole weekend I was hit with so much insecurity. Like, I'm not the right guy. I'm not the right guy. I'm not the right guy. And we had 400 attend that first service that Sunday, and what
did you think when you saw 400 people there? What went through your mind?
I don't remember thinking anything, because I had so much confidence in Pastor Chris. Yeah. I knew he was going to have a successful church. I had never experienced a church plant. So 400 wasn't big to me or it wasn't small to me.
Yeah.
I don't remember having a filter. I remember it being awesome, but I didn't have any preconceived idea what success looked like. And then I got food poisoning that night and spent the whole night about a mile from here in a hotel at the Colonnade on the bathroom floor all night throwing up. And it's actually that next morning I knew all of hell had come after me that weekend with insecurity and throwing up, and I knew then we were supposed to be here. Wow. So went home and started, to sell the house, transition the business, and get here as quickly as we could.
Were you running? You were running a business at the time?
Yeah, my dad started a towing and recovery company when I was 3 years old, and so I was running that business and serving at my church as a youth small group leader, and had to do all those transitions and sell the house and move here. And Pastor Chris, the way we figured it out, he still couldn't pay me. I mean, even though the church had launched, he had cashed out his entire family savings and put every dollar that he had into buying a keyboard and a screen and a projector, and so basically our plan was that I would raise my salary for the first year of Church of the Highlands. And he was like, if you run out of money by the time we're getting to 7-8 months, I'm sure the church will be able to fill in, so don't worry.
Try to give you some confidence.
We'll be able to get there. And I was shocked. God bless. We sent a support letter out. I'd never done that before for a mission trip or anything, and send it to every address we could get, whether I knew you or not. If I could get your address, I sent you a letter. And people that I thought would give gave nothing, and people I didn't think would give really got behind us. I think Coloradans were like, "You're going to Alabama?"
Yeah.
So they were like, "You're either stupid or you heard from God. Either way, you need money." So
that's awesome.
So they invested, and actually we set my salary at $24,000. We just decided what I would need to pay for groceries.
$24K.
Come on.
And make the house payment. The minimum amount needed is what we set as the salary, and I thought it would take, we'd squeak in $2,000 every month. And we actually raised $34,000 after the second letter went out.
That's awesome.
Wow.
So the third letter was a thank you. We're covered. And Pastor Chris said, you can do whatever you want with that $10,000 as far as the investment in the church. So I actually opened what is now the Highlands College checking account with $10,000 that we raised.
And
That's amazing.
We are sitting in Highlands College right now.
It's a miracle.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's a miracle.
That's amazing.
That God
I didn't
allowed
know
us
so much of that
to raise.
story.
Yeah, I really don't talk about a whole lot in that much detail.
Yeah.
What if your team had a clear roadmap for the next 12 months on what was most important? Complete with objectives, key metrics, owners, and deadlines. And not only that, but also the accountability to see the plan through. Through our team planning offsites, we're able to help you unlock and identify where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. With a focus on goals, key metrics, and actionable strategies, we'll build a plan that keeps you on track all year and provide the accountability to ensure that you execute what you planned. If you plan your work and you work your plan will work if it's a good plan. If you're ready to set up your team for success, clarity, and a clear roadmap moving forward, you can go to sidecarleader.com/coaching and let's make your vision a reality.
I'm curious, since then, so you came here, volunteer youth pastor, had raised your own salary. Do you know how many different roles you've had from that time to now?
I mean, you have lots of roles in church planning that I wouldn't consider it like an official role.
Right.
Like
You just do everything.
Like I pulled the trailer and parked it at my house, and Pastor Chris was like, you can't leave the keyboard in the trailer. The keyboard's the most expensive thing the church owns, and it's too hot in Alabama, so I need you to unload the keyboard and put it in your air-conditioned house. You know, like stuff like that. You don't have a role. And I remember telling Pastor Chris after we had moved here, I'm like, hey, please don't come to setup. We've got this, because he was there every Sunday, and he needed to be working on his message and just different moments like that. But in the bigger picture, I was over all Next Gen for the first 10 years of the church, babies through
That's
college.
when I met you, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And through the years, hired a junior high pastor. The first one was Kellen Coldiron, who's still here at the church. He was in the first class of what is now Highlands College, along with John Larson, who was our worship pastor for 20 plus years and is now running a lot of the college. And so 5 of the original 17 college students that started in September of 2001 are still full-time team members
Wow.
here at Church of the Highlands or the college 25
Fruit
years
that
later.
remains.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think a lot of people can say that they started with an organization and then grew it and grew with it to the point that Highlands College and Church of the Highlands is at now. And I would imagine that with that, there's moments where you face offense, where there's frustration, you navigate being overlooked, or you wanted to do this and this other decision was made. What do you think it takes to actually grow with something? And even in those moments when it's hard, not check out or just move on to the next thing that looks great?
Yeah, I think I was set up for success in the family business. But then as you learn and grow and look back, it was actually a biblical theological principle called sonship. And so growing up in the family towing business, which is very interesting because towing and recovery is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, helping people in trouble.
Goodness.
You ever heard of that? It's just like church,
Yeah.
you know. So there's no off day. There's no you can't predict when somebody's going to end up in the hospital or a crisis. And so I just grew up, and the business was based out of our house. So my dad would come home sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, and I'd sit at the kitchen table and ask him, how was that, you know, that big wreck he cleaned up on the interstate, or the big semi that he pulled out of the ditch, and so ministry or towing and life were mixed together because it was based out of our house. And so I didn't know any different. And then my dad was old school. And so when I was old enough to work, I mean, he gave me the worst job, paid me nothing. Like I think I'm old enough. I was doing this before child labor laws, but he paid me the least, worked me the worst, like the hardest, and I had the worst jobs. And when I was old enough to start driving trucks, he'd give me the oldest truck in the fleet. I'd get bullied by other employees, other drivers, you know, because I'm the boss's kid, but my dad was going to make sure I earned everything. I didn't get any special treatment.
Thank God for that. Right?
Yeah, I had to clean the toilet in the tow truck shop. Whatever you think that's like, you didn't go back far enough in your mind, I promise you. And but I didn't care.
Yeah.
So when you're a part of a family business, you're not working for the paycheck. And you're not counting your hours. Well, it's been 40 hours. I'm going home.
Yeah.
You're building your inheritance.
Yeah.
And so if you look throughout the words of Paul in Colossians 3, you know, you're not working for man, you're working for God. In Romans 8, you're co-heirs with Christ. So we're all heirs in the kingdom. We're not employees. And then in Galatians chapter 3 and chapter 4, there's not slave nor free, male nor female. Like we're all doing the same work, but if you're an heir, you're working, and that those 2 chapters talk about your inheritance. You might not even get it for a while because the trustees are taking care of it, but you still have to do. An heir has to do the same work as an employee or a servant, but then. Because we're God's children, then we are his heirs, is what Paul says. So therefore we get to say, Abba, Father. And so I had grown up in that, and I was in the towing business until I moved to Birmingham. So I've only held 2 jobs. I've worked for Randy's High Country Towing and Church of the Highlands.
That's pretty rare.
Over the last 54 years of my life. And so it set me up to come into church and have different roles, because if you're the son of the family business, you're going to do whatever it takes. So here's in summary, sons or daughters, just say heirs, because it applies to men and women. And Paul says heirs. Like if you're an heir, you're not positional. So it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what your position is in the house. Like you could take out the trash, or you could cook the meal. You could preach on the stage, or you could set up and tear down. Like you're not thinking through position because you're an heir, because the whole thing, the whole church is your inheritance. So you're not positional, and you're teachable. And so I think those two things
really good.
are what have helped me fight through. Oh, there's been plenty of times I wanted to quit.
Yeah.
And every one of them was either because of a fellow staff member
Yeah.
or from someone in the church.
Yeah.
No one on the outside has
Yeah.
ever made me want to quit, but
Yeah.
it's been those relational issues, the trials and the tough times. So there's been plenty of the times I wanted to quit, but there were plenty of times I wanted to quit in the towing business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the first time I worked 24 hours straight, I was 16 years old, working a blizzard in Colorado Springs, driving a tow truck at 16. The longest day I ever had in the towing business was 36 hours.
Wow.
So you want to quit, of course, but you don't even think about it because I'm an heir.
You're an heir.
Yeah.
I remember,
Wow.
man, it was over 15 years ago. You came and spoke when I was on staff at Healing Place Church, and the staff chapel, it was like a staff chapel, staff development, and you shared this message. I think I still have the notes about the difference between a son or a servant in the
Yes.
house. It was remarkable. It shifted something on our staff.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of what you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
No, that's what it is. It's the spiritual, theological principle of sonship. I've just fallen in love with the term heir because
Yeah,
it applies
son
to
and daughter.
male,
Yeah.
female. It's not just sons, it's daughtership. We don't
Yeah.
use that term. It's like mankind includes men and women. And the more I studied it, the more, I've leaned into the language that Paul used as an heir.
I'm curious with this because that makes so much sense within the church space. A lot of our audience is either senior pastors, executive teams, church leaders. We also have a lot of founders of nonprofits, and then now most recently mission-driven organizations like companies. How can you take that same principle and apply it in like a business? Is it possible?
Yeah. Or does it apply?
Does it apply?
I think it does.
Yeah.
Because of Colossians 3, that we are not working like in the message, your real master is God.
Yeah.
So it's not the CEO.
Yeah.
It's not the manager of the location that you work at, of the business that you're a part of. Like, so every day you're showing up to work, you are not doing that for the paycheck. According to Scripture, you are doing it for the Lord. And so if you can have that mindset, you're going to be able to deal with those interpersonal conflicts with fellow employees and peers and customers. And so I think if you can get that mindset that even when I go to work, I'm not working for FedEx, I'm not working for Lowe's, I'm not working for the bank or the hospital, I'm working for the Lord.
Yeah.
It can really help you have a different perspective.
Yeah.
How do you think that, just say you're in the CEO role of an organization, how can you foster that type of context or that type of working
I was
environment
about to
with
say,
your
I think
team?
that's what you guys do so well in Highlands College.
Yeah.
And as someone because I think what you're talking about is really rare. Like, it's a rare mindset that people have. Like, I'm an heir, I'm a son kind of mindset, especially with whatever it is that their job or the occupation is, inside or outside of the church. And I went through Highlands College and know how impactful that was to me. So yeah, to Jason's point, how do you guys develop that within other people?
I think it's been a banner that I've waved because I've never been in charge.
Yeah.
So I've always been in the son position under Pastor Chris and now Pastor Mark.
It gives you moral authority to be able to talk about it.
Right, because it is kind of awkward, or maybe even it could feel manipulative if the senior leader, the CEO or the senior pastor is like, hey, you need to be an heir, you need to not be positional, you need to be teachable. Like that could get a little weird, but I feel like that's actually a calling on my life, is to share this principle with churches, and maybe say some things that a senior pastor would not be comfortable saying, because heirs honor. You know how much I disagreed with my dad? I'm a different generation. I didn't agree with hardly anything, but I didn't go to the other employees and tell them I disagreed with my dad.
Yeah.
Because he's my dad. I'm going to honor him.
Yeah.
Not because I agree with him, but because I honor him.
Yeah.
There's been plenty of times I've disagreed with Pastor Chris or Pastor Mark, but I'm not going to go around to other church staff and complain about it because I'm a son.
That's
I'm
very
heir.
good.
And so I think in the corporate world, it's ownership.
Yeah.
And the companies that I see do it well, our profit sharing in the church world is treasures in heaven.
Right.
It's not necessarily monetized, but in the corporate world, I think it is important for corporations to profit share and motivate people in the company to feel like owners. And there are ways to do that whether they get shares of the company or whatever to help them feel more ownership in that.
Yeah.
I remember you in the talk that you gave. I don't remember every point, but I remember that you sort of had a contrast. It was like, here's how you know you're a son or an heir. Yeah. And it was like a list of these things. Like, here's how you know.
I bet if I could find those notes.
Functioning. Do you remember some of them you can spout off? Like, because I'm just thinking right now to maybe staff members of a church that's listening to this, or, staff members at a nonprofit or company.
Yeah.
How could they kind of get that grid to evaluate?
I haven't really taught it in the contrast much as leaned into the positives.
Yeah.
So heirs honor.
Yeah.
Heirs are family first. I've never thought about divorcing from my parents. I disagree with them.
Yeah.
We have disagreements, but I've never thought about divorcing them or divorcing my sister. I know there are family dynamics and a lot of things with different families where family members don't talk to each other. But there's always issues, and heirs are going to put family over the issues.
Yeah,
they're going to see the bigger picture. Heirs are going to be teachable.
Yeah.
I honestly, if I have any talent, maybe it's that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. What's Layne's superpower, if you have one?
Pastor Chris, in my opinion, is the greatest developer of people.
Yeah.
He is constantly bringing correction. Like but he's doing it out of love, and he's doing it for my benefit, not for the organizational's benefit. Wow. So he's not manipulating me to get better because he needs me to be better. He loves me, and he wants me to get better to reach my full potential.
Yeah.
And so having the able part of teachable, a lot of people I've been around they have the attitude, they're teachable. Let me know, let me have it, but they don't have the ability then to make the change and apply it and the ability to grow. So I think heirs are very, very teachable and eager to learn and understand, that the vision first came way before. Pastor Chris and Tammy were dreaming about this church long before I heard the story about this church.
Yeah.
And so you have to know your role and not ever make it about you. And heirs are not positional. We talked about that a little bit. It doesn't really matter. So my position has changed a lot, and I have learned the hard way because it's human nature to aspire to a position. Like I was called into youth ministry the summer after I started going to Pastor Chris's youth group. I went to summer camp, and that year between my junior and senior year of high school, God showed up. I knew I was called to ministry, youth ministry specifically. And then I led a youth small group for 10 years after that, trying to get into youth ministry, and it didn't happen for 12 more years. And so I couldn't wait to get my Church of the Highlands business card that said youth pastor, because that's what I'd been dreaming about and aspiring to.
Are you an executive leader looking to level up? Or are you leading a team that could use a crash course into effective leadership? Our Leadership Masterclass teaches 7 essential leadership skills that you can implement immediately with your team. These are practical, proven strategies to help you lead with clarity and confidence. If you're ready to transform your leadership, sign up today at sidecarleader.com and get started with resources that you can use right away.
And so it's human nature that we get attached to a position, or we aspire to a position, and a lot of times we love it and we hold on to it. And I describe it like the blade of a knife. Yeah. The position does the work. That's the youth pastor or the worship pastor or whatever, the senior, whatever, it's doing the work. But the more you love it, the more you squeeze it. Yeah. And you can squeeze a sharp knife very tightly, and it doesn't hurt. It doesn't cut you. And so
my stomach's kind of growing a little bit as I'm thinking about it.
But now I have my identity. I find my self-worth, my value. I finally made it. This is my position. And the tighter you squeeze it, when it is removed from you, the more damage it causes.
Oh,
that's great.
And I have loved every position I've had at Highlands, and literally every position I've had has been removed from me at some point. Some I've had longer than others, and I learned early on, in 2007, the church was 6 years old. It was the worst. It's when I realized that I was finding my identity in a position. I was leading our college ministry. It's called One. And it started as a small group in our house. We were leading it on Thursday nights. I was preaching every week to about 300 college students. And then we were about to get our first building, our Grants Mill broadcast campus. And I was so excited because if we could get 350 in a little office behind a skating rink, behind a Walmart, surely we can grow to 1,000 in a brand new building with lights and sound. And I couldn't wait, just couldn't wait. And about 6 weeks before we moved into the Grants Mill campus, Pastor Chris sat me down and said, "Hey, I don't want to have the college service anymore that I've been leading for 6 years, 6.5, you're right at 6 years. And I'm a good soldier. I pride myself on being a son, so I'm like, yes, sir. We'll make sure everybody knows that Sunday's going to be like I just on the outside I got on board, but he had just ripped that knife out of my hand,
Yeah.
and I was bleeding all over the place.
Wow.
I was gutted.
Did he know it?
No, so I covered it well. My wife didn't even know it, but on the inside I'm like, it's my preaching. He doesn't think I'm a good enough communicator.
Yeah.
350 is not big enough. He didn't think I was a good enough leader. I wonder, like, if you ever have spiraled before, which I think everybody has in my own, like, because I'm not talking to anybody, I'm not sharing this.
You're just ruminating on it.
I'm ruminating on it. And I'm spiraling to the point where I thought, you know what? I bet he wants me to go. It's time.
Wow.
Like, this is the beginning of the end. And I wallered in pain probably for about 3 weeks. I can't remember the specific date, but he called me and had a question, and I answered on my little flip mobile phone, and I said, "Can I talk to you about something?" And he said, "Sure." And I just word vomited and started crying, like, I don't understand why we're stopping one. Like, was I not a good enough communicator? Did I not grow it enough? Am I not a good enough leader? Do you want me to quit? Like, I'm just just pouring out emotion, and he's like yelling on the phone, stop, no, stop, trying to get me to shut up. And I finally shut up, and he's like, none of that is true. And I'll never forget this. He said, I have bigger, more important things for you to do.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm trying to like
puff yourself up again.
Oh yeah, that's what I thought. I've been upset thinking that I need to quit before I get fired.
Yeah.
And he wanted me to focus on developing leaders and planting campuses and
awesome.
not preaching every week to our college students. And so that's where the rumination went. And so that's when I learned, and I wish I could tell you every time I already had my hand open, but you can still do the work with your hand open, and when it's taken from you, it doesn't hurt.
That's such a good principle.
And so fast forward 20 years, so 25 years into the church, and Pastor Chris transitions the church to Pastor Mark, and it was that weekend that the longest position I had was raising up campus pastors and overseeing campuses, launching every campus for 20 years of multi-site. And in that day of that transition, that was removed from me. And I can, 100% tell you that when Pastor Mark took over the church, then 5 campus pastors took my job, basically. They're called campus pastor reps. And I had my hand open and was happy for the next generation to do that. Now, I still serve Pastor Mark. I actually became a campus pastor the next day and served in an interim for 8.5 months. And I've actually been at a second campus now for the last 4.5 months as an interim, serving on his team. And I'm reporting to one of the campus pastors that I brought on to the team.
Yeah.
And
wow.
I wish it didn't take me 20 years to get good at it, but it did.
Yeah.
That's so good.
So if I could help anybody, just keep your hands open.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Don't be positional.
That's great.
You said something earlier that I think is a strong suit that you have, that like the son versus servant was like a banner that you waved, and you waved it because it was one that Pastor Chris couldn't necessarily wave in his seat without it coming across as like manipulative. I'm curious, like, what would be your coaching to other second chair leaders or executives on how they can be a voice for their lead pastor in rooms that their lead pastor or leader is not in?
That's really good, Nathan. I think if you are a good heir, like you will learn how to lead culture when it comes to honoring leadership and the language that you use and how you handle disagreement.
Yeah.
And we've had Pastor Mark and Pastor Chris love different ideas. They want to hear everyone's ideas. And then, of course, they're the leader. They're going to end up making the decision. So I've given a lot of ideas in 25 years, which means there's a lot of times I left a room when they went with a different idea. And I, of course, disagree, but then I have a choice to make. Yeah. Am I going to leave the room and say, hey, this is what we're doing? Or I'm going to go to my friends and be like, I can't believe, they didn't go with my idea.
Yeah.
Like you have moments like that, moments to, Pastor Chris has never said, you have to call me Pastor Chris. But I mean, I'm just going to take the lead. And if he's in the room, I'm going to say Pastor Chris. If he's not in the room, I'm going to say Pastor Chris, because I want to set the culture.
Yeah.
Pastor Mark and I are very, very close. I had the privilege of going to Pastor Chris 20 plus years ago and saying, I think Pastor Mark Pettis Mark Pettis at the time is going to be a better youth pastor than I'll ever be. I think we should hire him as our high school pastor. And so I, in a sense, hired Pastor Mark, on the team, because I was over student ministries back then, and I'm going to call him Pastor Mark. Like, he doesn't ask me to do that, but he's my pastor, and I'm going to call him that and make that the standard. And we are all setting, everyone on a church team or staff is setting culture all the time. And that culture is really the language is very important, and our behavior is very important to setting that culture, but being mindful of it and trying to be a great example of it.
That's great. That's fantastic.
You have made a huge impact on my life over the years. I can't think of many people outside of you, Pastor Dino, Pastor Chris, here at Highlands, at ARC. A lot of what we do at our church and even at Sidecar is stuff we've learned from all of you. I'd just be curious to know, what was the process for you with learning from Pastor Chris? You said he's one of the greatest developers you've ever been around. What did that look like personally between him and you? I
think, and this is one of my favorite things to talk about, and we have all these different words for the same thing, in my opinion. Correction, feedback. Feedback's the most common word. So you have correction, feedback, discipline. We don't use that much, but that word's thrown in there. I think those three words are the same thing as discipleship. Yeah. I think all of it is the same. If there is no correction or feedback or discipline, there is no discipleship. We're just making each other feel good.
Yeah, that's great.
And Pastor Chris, even when he was when I was 17 years old, if he saw something, he would say something. Yeah. And he would not just correct my behavior. That if you're just trying to correct somebody's behavior, you're just trying to get them to perform for you. And that in my opinion is manipulation. Yeah. But he would always, whenever he brings correction or feedback or discipline, whatever word you want to use, he is going to bring the why. Yep. Mm-hmm. He is going to turn it into a teaching moment. Yep. And so it's really fascinating to me, because first of all, I know he loves me. Of course, he loves the church. He loves the college. He needs me to do a good job. But I know that correction is coming because he wants me to be the best me. Yeah. And he wants me to reach my full potential. So I know his motive for me, there's love behind it. But my gosh, it happened last week.
Really?
Yeah, we're 25 years in. We're 25 years in. And Pastor Chris, just the way when he sees something, he's like, okay, this had to do with stewardship and just how we're stewarding what God's given us at the college now that he's leading the college. And he didn't just say we've got to be good stewards. He talks about why we got to, why. And so, and the way he puts it is the goal of correction is not obedience. It's agreement. So he's not going to just let you just, because I'll do what he, there was this, this was, golly, I guess maybe 5 years ago. It would have been in 2021. We made some organizational changes. I had been helping him build Grow for 10 years, and he's like, look, I don't want you to go help other churches right now. I want you to build this church, help us get this church back to pre-COVID. And so I quit traveling, quit going to churches, and I helped him right here at Highlands and helped with the lead team. So I had a different role starting in 2021, and I would lead the lead team meetings when he was out. and so he was in one day, and one of the things that's beautiful about his correction, he'll never embarrass you. He'll never correct you in front of other people.
Great.
Now, if he's correcting the team, that's different.
Yeah.
Like, hey guys, I need everybody to be good stewards. Like, that's different than hey, this behavior, I need you to change it. And so we had this. It was the first meeting after I was leading those meetings that he was back in the meeting, and after the meeting, he's like, hey Layne, let me talk to you for a few minutes. And so I don't know what he needs. We're separate. We're not in front of anybody. He's like, hey, I don't want you to change, how that meeting flows at all. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'll make sure we do it just the way you've been doing it for 20. Like, that's easy.
Yeah.
That correction was so easy. I'm like, oh, no problem. And I turned to walk away, and he goes, get back in here. Get back in here. And I'm like, yes, sir. Because he didn't have an opportunity to teach me.
Yep.
And he always teaches. Always. I've never seen Pastor Chris Hodges, Chancellor Pastor Chris Hodges. Now he likes to be called Papa Chris instead of Pastor Chris, PC still. But I've never seen him bring correction without teaching. So you learn.
That's great.
And he's like, hey, if you change the way I lead that meeting, you unintentionally might be saying that you disagree with how I lead. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was not my intent.
Yeah.
At all. I was, but instead of walking out of the room and rolling my eyes, oh, I got to lead the meeting the same way, I walked out of the room going, I get it.
Yeah.
I want to lead the meeting the same way.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So he's so good at that in every moment, to bring a teaching behind it and making sure that there's agreement.
Is your team ready to thrive? Do they have the resources and clarity that they need to succeed? In our team coaching sessions, we provide the tools and principles needed to drive health and growth, and most importantly, clarity in your organization. We believe that clarity brings the confidence to lead effectively. So many times we're too close to the problems to see them correctly, and through coaching, we're able to bring objectivity and no emotional attachment to help you see your organization clearly. Together, we'll develop a strategic path that empowers your team to implement best practices and take on new challenges with confidence. Let's unlock your team's potential. Want to learn more? Head over to sidecarleader.com/coaching, and let's talk about your goals and how we can help you accomplish them.
Have you had guys, because it is such a feedback culture here, have you had guys or gals either on staff or in the college where you guys were trying to give coaching, correction, whatever, and they didn't receive it well? How'd that work out?
I mean, it has, but it's been very rare.
Really?
I think if you do it right, so if they know you love them and you're for them,
Yep.
and then if you take the time, so I would say yes, there have been people that haven't received it well because I didn't do a good enough job explaining the why.
That's great.
So the onus and responsibility is on you.
Yeah.
Rather than on them.
And the why, it might take a long conversation.
Yeah.
Pastor Chris was just one sentence, and I was like, "Oh, I got it." But there are times where they don't get it, and that's on me. And I'm in working with churches and leaders, over these 25 years, I've seen so many instances where the senior pastor or any pastor is frustrated with a subordinate, somebody that's working for them, and if you dive into it, it's actually it's on them.
Oh man, listen, one time, this was years ago, I was at one of PC's roundtables. This was probably 2019. And after one of the sessions or whatever, he said to me, he goes, "You just seem frustrated. Why are you so frustrated?" And I was like, "Wow, it's just," and I started talking about the team. And he just interrupted me. He said, "Do you know what I hear you saying?" He was like, "You're frustrated because you have expectations of your team that you have not communicated." He was like, "It's not their fault.
That's right.
It's your fault." He was like, "So here's what I want you to do." So this is his coaching moment. He's like, "I want you to go home and write down every one of your frustrations. And then I want you to write down, what is the expectation that they're not meeting? There's a gap between expectation and experience. And then you just need to articulate clearly what it is that you expect for them." That's it.
Yep.
And that was like, but exactly what you're saying. It's like,
And-
it was on me.
And I've watched him lead that way. I have seen him, whether it's individually with me or with the whole lead team of the church and now the lead team of the college. He did it 2 weeks ago with the college lead team. There was an event that we did, and some expectations weren't met, and it was clearly some of us that dropped the ball. Like, he could have said, "This is on you," and he didn't. And I've seen over 25 years, I have seen him own things so many times, over and over again, because he says, "I did not give clarity on what I was expecting, so this one is on me."
Yeah.
That's
So
great.
not only did he tell you that, but he lives it, and
Yeah.
he lived it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Let me ask you this. A lot of people might hear this and think like, I want a feedback development culture within my church or organization or whatever it is that they're leading. But it can at times, especially if you're new at it, it can be uncomfortable giving feedback to someone. So what would your coaching be to someone who's new in a leadership role, new to developing?
Yeah,
other people?
I would recommend a lot of teaching on it first.
Yeah.
Pastor Chris has always done that very well. Like whatever we want in the culture, he teaches on it very clearly, and sometimes multiple times. And so the more you teach on it, the more there's understanding about it.
That's great.
It might be there's a great book called Radical Candor by Kim Scott.
Fantastic.
Like, so maybe have the whole team read that book and just get them open to
The idea.
of feedback, and then just really walking it out and leading well and making sure there's love with it, and they feel like
I think
you're
that's
supporting
key.
them.
I mean, what I'm hearing you say is like they have to know that I love you, and this is because I want
It's a
what's
caring
best for you. I
thing.
want to see you grow. I want to
Yes.
see you get better. It's
Yes.
not even about the organization
Yes.
necessarily. There will be benefits, but for the organization, but it's because I love you. But I think a lot of times that's probably the missing piece.
Yeah.
In some of the organizations that we've worked with, it just feels like everyone's a cog in the wheel.
Yeah.
You know, and there's not real genuine concern for the care or development of that person, you know?
And it's more about performance in the person.
Exactly.
So fostering that.
Yeah.
And then we have some clients that we've worked with, they never give feedback or coaching until annual review.
Oh,
And then they just drop the bomb.
No,
Speak to that some.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's the culture here. And we call, I don't know, we call it an instant feedback culture.
Yeah.
Now, instant doesn't mean instant like,
As soon
I'm
as
going to
that
call you out and embarrass you in front of
Yeah,
everybody. So the way I describe it, it is as soon as possible and appropriate.
That's great.
So that might mean you have to wait an hour.
Yeah.
You might have to wait to have a meeting after the meeting. You might have to wait till the service dismisses and people have gone, and then we talk about it. But if you wait to give feedback, one of two things happens, and neither of them are good. If you wait and you're like, oh, we're gonna do that in the annual review, which is coming up in 6 weeks, or we're gonna see each other on our weekly meeting on Thursday, and this is Sunday. If you wait even 3-4 days, it will either diminish. So then Thursday comes and you're like,
I don't remember.
I can't remember what that was. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it because I don't remember. Or it exaggerates. So for 4 days, I'm like, I cannot
building
believe
it.
Nathan did that. I cannot believe he showed up late to set up. We're a portable church. So disrespectful to all these dream teamers that come early. I can't, like, and then you're just angry.
You're building a case against that person.
Yeah.
Right. And then you confront and you're like, I don't even remember being late because it was 4 days ago. And so it's so important to have that culture where it's like, yeah, I am strongly
Say that phrase
opposed.
again. Do you say immediate and appropriate?
As soon as possible and appropriate.
That's great.
So in an instant feedback culture, instant is a little bit
Yeah.
like unrealistic because that could embarrass someone. Like,
Yeah.
and so I think that's a part of our culture that's extremely healthy. So we have annual reviews. Of course, we're going to have documentation,
Yeah.
but the feedback should have been coming
And you're not
52 weeks in a
surprised by
row.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's just in a different format then.
Yep.
Hey, one of the things, and you may not have to do this because Pastor Chris is so intentional with feedback and coaching and discipline, like you talked about. But one of the things I appreciate about Nathan is every time we do have an oversight meeting, and we do it weekly, nearly every time he asks a question, is there any area of my life or leadership you want to speak into? Is there anything you see that I don't see? Do you have some kind of like little ritual that you kind of go through like that, or you don't have to? Because
typically you don't have to with Chris Hodges. Pastor Chris is he's gonna say it. He's gonna say it. But there are times this happened on a Sunday morning, and I know we got to wrap up. It was a Sunday morning. I was hosting our broadcast campus, so I did the moment after worship before the message, and we always debrief after the first service and talk about the service, flow, worship, whatever, and he gives any correction, and we got through the debrief, and he didn't say a word to me, and I'm like, oh, whew,
Crushed it.
all right, I crushed it, and I'm walking out of the green room, and the Holy Spirit said, you should ask, and so I turned around and went back, and I said, is there anything you would like me to change? And actually, this is so funny. He was like, yeah, it was too much to bring up, so I was just going to let it go. Because he didn't have time. He didn't want really. So he's like, I want to correct him, but I just don't have the time. Because now the next service is minutes away. Yeah. But I opened the door, and then it made it easier for him to walk through.
That's great.
And then he gave the correction. So I think it's important. What I've always said to people is learn your leader.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
If a leader is not comfortable giving feedback often, well, then you need to work on a pattern of opening that door, open that door, open that
Great.
door.
I think asking it just makes you easier to lead.
Yes.
And it makes the job easier for your leader as
Yes.
well. And what leader doesn't want someone on their team that makes their job easier?
Yes, exactly.
Layne, I love you so much, man.
I love you too.
I'm so grateful
Both
for your
of you.
friendship
So
all these
thankful for you.
years, and for your investment in Sidecar.
Yeah. So much of what my life looks like today is because of the obedience that you talked about in Colorado years ago. And so I love getting to have you on the podcast. Hope
Thank
this
you.
is the first of many.
I'm honored.
One last short question. You're a race car driver,
Retired.
What was the fastest you ever went?
Well, in the professional racing I did was up Pikes Peak, so up a mountain road with 3,000-foot cliffs, and my top speed was 140. Oh my God. And so that's not the fastest I've ever been in a vehicle, but
That's wild,
That's
man.
the fastest I've driven in a race.
Well, Sidecar Leader, helping leaders go further faster
Yeah, there
with
we go.
Layne Schranz. Love you, man.
Love you.